Hi, my name is Akil, and I'm here to talk to you about wireless sensors and what this means for the future of healthcare. There are currently 11.2 billion sensors, and this number is only expected to rise, even exponentially. So to understand why there's such a high demand for these sensors and why so many more are predicted to come in the future, was to understand the concept of perception. This connects it back to the stimulus materials, particularly in Richard Axel's olfactory article. He mentions how the body and the brain use chemical signals to internalize an image of the external stimuli. And what this sort of raises questions of what are the limits of human perception and where can this human perception go wrong. Secondly, the extrasensory article, there's a connection there to how sensors are redefining the limits of human perception, taking our humans' perception and senses to new unprecedented levels. This allows for remote sensing and remote perception and sort of expands our horizons on what actually can be detected. So this leads me to the research question of applying this tremendous potential to healthcare. Should these sensors be utilized to improve the quality and effectiveness of patient care? And after considering the various perspectives and sort of limitations and benefits, I've come to the conclusion that these sensors should be used as they can greatly improve the quality and effectiveness of patient care. So let's go to the benefits real quick. First, there's more accurate data being produced, greater consistency, reliability, and efficiency. Secondly, the large amount of data being generated can be analyzed with big data, which can generate key insights. And finally, there's a shift to patient-centered care, emphasizing the needs of the patient and sort of tailoring a healthcare solution that's best for their needs. So first, greater accuracy. So as Richard Axel's article sort of prompted, the idea that the external stimuli are being internalized. This leads to the question of in what other ways are human perception limited? And the first way is that there's a restricted range and that there's a continuous monitoring of things of sort of patient information is impossible, and that doctors are subject to human error. Doctors are humans just like you and me. And what this means is that they can't always be expected to be at the top of their game 100%. There's always going to be a possibility of human error. And there's also a second sort of issue that comes up with human perception, that there's a very perception between people. And this has generated conflicts in the research community, in the research perspective, in that there's a question of whose perception is right, as one person may perceive the certain object a certain way, and another person a different way. So this is sort of really relevant to healthcare in that 69% of injuries are due to errors in perception. And this is really important in neonatal resuscitation, in that if a doctor makes an error in detecting the heart rate, as has been done 46% of the time, the baby can die, and that's emotional trauma for the patients and a loss of human life that could have been prevented with sensors. The sensor advantage is that there's a more consistent and accurate output, and it allows for greater efficiency and remote tracking. So a doctor can get this resemblance of a work-life balance. They aren't overworked, they're well rested to tackle the issues of their patients. As seen in this graph here, various sensors align almost perfectly to the FDA's golden standard when it comes to detecting heart rates. Secondly, big data. And I want to start off with a quote from Professor Quackenbush, a PhD in biostatistics, that every major scientific revolution has been driven by one thing, and that is data. So, this is not particularly to healthcare, but it can be. There's an infinite possibilities here. Big data uses the large amount of data generated by these sensors to analyze them and sort of generate key insights that normal humans can't perceive on their own. What this has revolutionized in various fields from astronomy to agriculture. For healthcare, this can be life-changing. So particularly for patient data, there's a shift from reactionary care to preventative care. This is better for patients as they spend less time in the hospital and more time living their lives, living more fulfilling lives, and sort of living healthy lifestyles. This also individualizes care for them and reduces anxiety, which we'll see later on. So a specific example of this was a man in his Apple Watch, which his Apple Watch predicted that he probably had a heart attack, and if he didn't get this notification and go to the doctor, he might not have been here today. Finally, there's patient-focused care. The idea of patient-focused care is not a relatively new one. It's been around since Hippocrates, in his famous oath that has been guiding the principles of physicians all over the world since Greek times. it has the idea that the patient needs come first and reduces anxiety, promotes trust, and allows the patient to get control over what treatment options they're getting and pick an option that's best for them. So let's go through a few limitations of this sort of using sensors. First, there's a question of ethics and security, particularly around this data. Who gets access? How is this used? And who owns this data in particular? So as you can see here, there's a sort of relevant example with Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, how they're selling users' data for a quick profit. But for patients, this isn't what they posted, like a cat video, but this is actually their day-to-day lives, what their lifestyle is like, and things like that. There's also a fear of constant tracking, there's an invasion of privacy that they're constantly being watched all the time. And this data is such a valuable asset that hackers may see this opportunity to tamper with the data and make this data insecure and sort of devastate researchers and scientists who are fed incorrect information. Secondly, there's a socioeconomic and ecological impact. One, from the economic perspective, patients who have money and are at the top of the socioeconomic ladder can afford these sensor treatments, and those who can't really afford these. So there's a disparity in the quality of healthcare, sort of furthering these divides. And finally, there's an environmental cost, as you can see here. The sensors in healthcare will create an increased demand for rare earth metals and toxic chemicals, which is devastating for the environment, as there's now more and more metals being mined to generate each of these tiny little parts of the computing processor. So this leads me to my final solution, in that there's technological advancements in recycling and having a set standard and transparency. So technological advancements in recycling will help mitigate the environmental impact by creating more efficient and more sort of resource-effective sensors. And having a set standard sort of allows sensors and patients and doctors to be on the same sort of scale, understanding how their data is being used, who gets to use it, and how exactly this data should be handled. And finally, emphasizing patient transparency allows the patient to get a control and agency over their data, empowering them. So in their eyes, they know exactly what's happening with their data, who's using it, why is it being used, and they have full control whether to choose to be part of the system or not. I want to end off on a quote from Professor Gary King. People are literally dying every single day simply because data is not being shared. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So, what information did you need before you even started, and how did you go about finding that information?
So what I needed to understand before going about this research topic was how sensors play a role in the scientific process and how it's being used in healthcare. Healthcare oftentimes is slow to innovation, technological innovation. So understanding the current situation will allow me to sort of understand where the sensors can be taken in the future.
Okay. So what advice would you give somebody who is researching this topic?
So particular advice I would give to sort of further research and people who are researching the same topic would be to consider the privacy and ethical aspects of this, as well as unforeseen sort of consequences such as network capabilities and data storage, as these sensors are generating a lot of private information. So the challenge comes then to how do you securely transport this data and how can it be stored effectively.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.